Okay, class, I'm going to provide some review for the first part of the Chapter 10 test, sequences and series. Notice that the quiz is only going to be worth 24 points because it's not on very much information. It's only on general sequences and series and then arithmetic. The first type of problem that you will see on the quiz is writing the first terms of a sequence. I give you blanks to put the equations in, and each problem's worth 1 point. So, let's first talk about the problem. N is 1, and then we need to do the second term, we need to do the third term, the fourth term, and the fifth term. This is not recursive, we're simply plugging in the N. So, the first problem has -1, N plus 1. If N is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. And then the second equation has 1 squared over 1 minus 5, which is -4. So be very careful here with your arithmetic. -1 squared is 1. And then 1 over -4, this will be -1/4, just doing the arithmetic. The second part has -1 cubed, and then 4 over -3. If you'll look at that, algebraically, or actually it's arithmetic, you get +4/3. For N is 3, you get -1. The power is N plus 1, so in this case it'll be 4. Times 9 over -2. So that gets you -9 over 2. If N is 4, I'm running out of room here. If N is 4, we'll have -1 raised to the 5th power times 16 over -1. If you do your arithmetic there, you get +16. And then lastly, if N is 5, you get -1 to the 6th times 25 over 0. You cannot divide by 0, so this last term is undefined. That doesn't happen very often, but in this case, the 5th term is undefined. B is a recursive. You will see a recursive. The cool thing about a recursive is you shouldn't miss the first term. The first term it gives you is -5. Then I need to write, this is the first term, this is the second term, this is the third, I want the fourth, and I want the fifth. Now, if you'll notice, to get the second term, I need K to be 1. Because down here, if I want A sub 2, the only way to get 2 down there is for K to be 1, 1 plus 1. So the problem says to take A sub K, which A sub 1 minus 6, A sub 1 is -5 minus 6, so you get -11. If we want to talk about A sub 3, K would need to be 2. So it's asking you to do A sub 2 minus 6, which is a -11 minus 6. It's recursive. You need the term before to figure out the next term. K is 3. We'll give you A is A sub 4. So I'm figuring out A sub 3 minus 6, which is -17 minus 6. So in the blank you would write -23. And then A sub 5, K would need to be 4. So it's asking you to figure out A sub 4 minus 6, which is -23 minus 6, which is -29. So there'll be 2 of those, 1 point each, where you have to write the sequences down. Yes, one of them will be recursive. The next type is to simplify using factorials. There will be one with numbers and one with variables. Now, let's review the variable one. If I'm asking for n minus 3 factorial, that's n minus 3 times what's 1 less than n minus 3? N minus 4, n minus 5, and you would keep that going all the way down to 1. On the bottom is n factorial, which means whatever n is, times 1 less than that, times 1 less than that, times 1 less than that, all the way down to 1. And what you're looking for is for these to be the same so that you can start dividing out. And you're left with 1 is on the numerator, not 0. Be careful, it's not 0, over n times n minus 1 times n minus 2. And you do not have to multiply that out. You can if you choose, but you don't have to. These are each 1 point as well. Now, B is challenging because you're tempted to say it equals 1. For some reason, students see the 2 and the 9 factorial, assume it's 11 factorial, but let's look at what it really means. 2 factorial is 2 times 1. 9 factorial is 9 times 8 times 7, all the way down to 1. 11 factorial is 11 times 10 times 9 times 8, all the way down to 1. And what you want to look for is this 9 and the 9, the 8 and the 8, all the way down to 1 cancels. And so you're left with 2 times 1 is 2, 11 times 10 is 110, and if you simplify that fraction, you can use your calculator, you'll get 1 over 55. So I will expect that you understand factorials. There will be a section next where I ask you to write an expression, a sub n, to give me what this term is. I'm hoping that you will notice squares here. 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared. But when I start, you'll notice that the top number is simply what term we're on. The first term it's 1, the second term it's 2, the third term it's 3. However, I'm not squaring 1. I'm squaring 2. I'm always squaring the next number, the n plus 1 number. So this is basically looking for a pattern. Unless it's arithmetic, then we can use our formula. B, you'll notice it's going down by 3 each time. This is arithmetic. Therefore, we can use our formula. And if you'll remember, our formula for the general term says you take the first term plus n minus 1 times the difference, and you do your little algebra there, and you get negative 3n plus 13. So if there's an arithmetic, it's simple. You can use the formula we used. If it's not, then you'll have to follow the pattern. There will be one where the sign alternates between positive and negative, positive and negative. So let's review that for a second. If I want to have negative 1, your two choices are this. It's either raised to the n or it's raised to the n plus 1. And let's look at how these change. If n is 1, the first term in this top will be negative. If n is 2, it'll be positive because it's squared. If n is, the third term will be negative, positive, and so on. However, if I do n plus 1, if n is 1, this starts with positive. Because if n is 1, you're squaring it, which is positive. If n is 2, it's the third power, it's negative. If n is 3, it's the fourth power, which is positive, and so on. So in this example, I wanted to start with a negative, so I need to put negative 1 to the n power in my answer. I'm hoping then you'll see that 8 is 2 cubed, 27 is 3 cubed, 64 is 4 cubed, and of course, we need to think of this first one as negative 1 over 1 so that you can think of 1 cubed. So the numerator is 1. The denominator is simply what term we're on cubed. So I will expect that you can do the -1 to show me alternating terms. I will give you one problem where you have to find the sum that's not linear. So you'll have to do it the long way and find each of the terms and add them up. It turns out they just want to know from 2 to 4. So in this example, you're going to have to find 4 terms. So let's look here. If k is 2, -2 raised to the 2 minus 1 is 1 over 2 minus 2 factorial, 0 factorial. Let's figure out what that is. Remember that 0 factorial is 1. So this ends up being -2 over 1, which is simply -2. Then I'm going to do 3. -2 raised to the 3 minus 1 is 2 over 3 minus 2 factorial, which is 1 factorial. This turns out to be 4 over 1 or 4. And then if k is 4, I have -2 raised to the 3rd power over 2 factorial, which ends up being -8 over 2, which ends up being -4. And so if you do the math here, -2 plus 4 minus 4, you get -2. So I will expect that you can do the sum the longhand way, not the formula we use for arithmetic. Because to use the arithmetic formula, you have to see a common difference or see that the problem given is linear. Then I'll give you one where you have to write the sigma notation. So I know it's going to be sigma notation, and I notice every term has a 1 on top. I can go ahead and write that in. I'm going to use I. You'll also notice here that each term has a -5 in it. So I can put it into the equation, and then I'm simply looking at what number is here. It goes from 3, 4, 5, ... up to 15. So if I want to use an I here, I need to say it goes from 3 to 15. And that'll be worth 2 points because there's a lot of different parts there to do. Then I'm going to ask you to find some missing values. I do not want you to just use your calculator. I want to actually see that you find the general term. Remember, the formula says you take the first term plus n minus 1 times the common difference, which is given here as 1/4. So if I use my algebra skills, I get 1/4 n plus 5.75. I'm hoping that you can see that with my arithmetic skills. The question is asking for a of 13. Oops, I forgot my n here. So what is 1/4 times 13 plus 5.75? I hope that you see that this is 3.25 plus 5.75, which gives you 9. So I do want to see the work where you find the general form of the equation. Now, what's tricky about B is that we must find D. Now, this is a little hard to read. This is an A sub 4. This is A sub 12, and I'm asking you to find 32. So we need to find D. What's between them? So if you'll look, you'll notice that between 2 and 26, there are 24 numbers. To go from 2 to 26, I go up 24 numbers. But my term number, I go from the 4th term to the 12th term, which is only going up 8 places. So my common difference is D. D is 3. Now, to write the general form, I need the first term. I know D is 3, but I need to find this first term. So let's look at how to do that. If I know the 4th term, and here's where I don't care that you do a little thinking like this. If I know it's going up by 3, the third term must be negative 1. The second term must be negative 4. So the first term is negative 7. And so to write the general formula, I can say negative 7 plus n minus 1 times 3. Do a little algebra here. I get 3n minus 10. And so to find the 32nd term, I just plug it in. And I'm running out of room here. 3 times 32 is 96 minus 10. And so the 32nd term is 86. So I will expect that you can find D, find the general equation, and then find a given term. And those are each worth, the first one's worth 1 point because there's not as much to find. The B will be worth 2 points when you have to find D. I'm asking for general formulas here. Remember, to write the general formula, you need the first term and D. Turns out this one gives you both. It's going down by negative 2 each time. So the first term is 25. Be careful that you realize the D is going down by 2. If you do your algebra there, you get negative 2n plus 27. It's worth 1 point because everything's pretty given. The next one is going to be worth 2 points because you have to find your D value. So let's look at our D value here. If I'm going from negative 7 down to negative 35, that's going down 28 spaces. But I'm only going between the 5th and the 19th term, so that's 14 terms have to be covered. So D is negative 2. You also need to find A sub 1. And so I don't mind that you do this. If it's negative 7, this would have to be negative 5. This would have to be negative 3, negative 1. The first term is 1. So if I plug into my equation, 1 plus n minus 1 times D is negative 2, and do my algebra, I get negative 2n plus 3 is the general form. You can check these by verifying that A sub 5, if I put in 5, I would get negative 7. If I put in 19, I would get negative 35. So you should be able to check that you have 100% on these. Then there's 4 that I'm going to ask you to find the sum of. Remember, you can only use the formula if it's arithmetic or in linear. You'll notice these are all arithmetic and all linear. Remember that the formula is this: the number of terms divided by 2 times the first term plus the last term. I'm not giving you that on the quiz. So danger, danger. Memorize this formula before the quiz. So for this example, I know I'm adding up the 32 terms. The first term's 1. Uh-oh. I need the 32nd term, and it's not given. So I need to find the general formula first. It starts with 1 plus n minus 1. What is the common difference here? It looks like each time it's going up by 6. So I'm going to use that common difference here of 6. If I work my algebra, you'll get 6n minus 5. And so we can find the 32nd term. 6 times 32 minus 5 is 187, I believe. And then do the algebra here, and you get 3008 once you know all the parts. Again, this is arithmetic. I'm going to use my formula. I'm doing the first to the 180th term. So there'll be 180 terms. The first term is 5.5. Plugging in 1 into the equation, I get 5.5. The last term, the 180th term, is 95. Get out your calculator. This is a calculator quiz, and we get 9,045. These are each 2 points because there are different parts you have to find. Down here, this is tricky. I'm adding the first 25 terms. It tells me the first term is 3, but it doesn't tell me the last term. So I have to use my formula. The first term is 3 plus n minus 1 times, I need the common difference here, and it's not given. So let's find. We need to find that common difference. You'll notice it's going from 3 to 48. It's going up 45 numbers over 9 terms from 1 to 10. So my common difference is 5. So I'm going to use the 5 here. Then I can write, using algebra, that the general term is 5n minus 2. So here I need the 25th term. I need a sub 25. If I want to find a sub 25, 5 times 25 minus 2, I believe, is 123. Use your calculator and figure this out. You get 1575. Now, danger, danger. How many terms have I adding here? I'm going from 0 to 92. That's 93 terms. Many students will get that wrong. The very first term in the sequence is when n is 0. 4 times 0 plus 5 over 3 is simply 5 over 3. The 92nd term is 4 times 92 plus 5 over 3, which is 373 over 3. Is that right? 4 times 92, I don't have a calculator, is 8, 368. Yeah, plus 5. 373 over 3. This is a calculator problem. Let me get a color here. 93 over 2 times 378 over 3. Turns out that 378 over 3 is 126. So if you multiply that out, you get 5,859. And so that covers what you will see on the 24-point quiz on 10-1 and 10-2.